The climactic Ash vs Cynthia battle is finally over, and it did not disappoint. But which of these two champions emerged victorious? Well, let's talk about it. Hey Charles, it's everyone. How are you today? September is the month of beginnings for students in many countries around the world, but for viewers of the Pokémon anime, once every 3 years, September becomes the month of endings. As whichever Pokémon anime series is ongoing at the time enters its final stretch of its big tournament, and all of the show's story arcs begin to end in advance of the new anime that will accompany the new generation of Pokémon video games. It's the most exciting time to be tuned into the show, with the climax of the latest Ash Ketchum chapter in full swing, and a fresh start, sometimes a little bit too fresh, just around the corner. And here we are at the beginning of the end once again, in the second semi-finals match of the World Coronation Series Masters 8 tournament, wherein Alola champion Ash is battling his heart out against Sinnoh champion Cynthia. In a match 15 years in the making, and what a whiz-banger of a battle it was. So today's plan is to break down what happened, why it matters, and what is next for Ash Ketchum. And it is going to be a good time, so kindly subscribe, hit the notification bell awesome, and let's bust out the juicy nuggets. To quickly refresh ourselves on how the battle has played out thus far, in episode 123, Cynthia led with a Spiritomb and it wrought havoc on Ash's team, knocking out Dragonite, Gengar, and even Pikachu, thanks to a sneaky Destiny Bond. In short, the episode was a much appreciated nod to how much of a pain Cynthia's Spiritomb was to deal with back in the Generation 4 games when it was a tanky nightmare with no weaknesses, and Ash's Pikachu also delivered, as always, by taking 2 key knockouts to prevent the sweep. It was a strong start by any measure. Then, in episode 124, Ash's Dracovish and Sirfetch'd showed their quality, with Dracovish handling Roserade like a dog at the groomers, and Sirfetch'd striking down Milotic before itself falling to Cynthia's Garchomp. But not before the Duckman stunned everyone by leaving the Ace of Aces staggering from an absolute doozy of a hit. Basically, it was awesome to see Mr. Fish doing what he does best, being Mr. Fish, and Sirfetch'd established itself as a Pokemon anime legend by being the very first Pokemon in the show to do big damage to Cynthia's Garchomp. But of course, that was not the end of episode 124's surprises, with Ash then beaming in Lucario to square off against Cynthia's Togekiss, only for Cynthia to shock the world by Dynamaxing her Togekiss as the episode drew to a close. I have to say that seeing Cynthia Dynamax her Togekiss instead of going for the obvious Mega Evolution play was quite the delight, as not only did the purple Nurple out of left field twist up an otherwise predictable finish, but it also showed us once again just how versatile Cynthia can be. It was one of those Pokemon Journeys moments that nobody saw coming, and a highlight of the tournament even if we never will get to see the much anticipated Mega Lucario versus Mega Garchomp matchup that many had hoped to see. Well, with that said, episode 125 picks up where we left off, with Ash's Batman Jackal staring down a big fat smiling thing with no arms, and Ash promptly Mega evolving his Golden Boy to leap into the fray. And from here on out, the battle may not have had as many surprises as parts 1 and 2, but it was a spectacle in its own right. To begin, Togekiss uses Max Airstream, but Mega Lucario runs through the eye of the storm while charging up an Aura Sphere. It was a nifty move, but Togekiss deals with the attack easily enough, and even when Lucario craters it with a super effective Bullet Punch, Togekiss just gets back up, virtually unfazed, and continues spamming Max Airstream. As such, Ash and Lucario have no choice but to enter perfect sync, sinking so deeply that Greninja can feel the reverberations of their bond from however many thousands of miles away, and with the signature Ketchum mystery buff working overtime, the two are able to force a real gravy splasher of an Aura Sphere through Max Airstream to knock Dynakiss on its buns. Only for the armless Egg Demon to get back up again after shrinking down to normal Kiss. What a character. But after one more ferocious exchange, Bullet Punch finally does what it needs to do, and just like that, Togekiss is out like a lamp. We've more or less known that the finals of this battle would come down to Ash's Lucario versus Cynthia's Garchomp for months now, and the writers foreshadowed the battle even further by drawing parallels between Ash and Cynthia raising these two companions from the egg in episode 122, Humiliate the Kalos Region Part 2. While Cynthia's Garchimp had already sustained massive damage from Sirfetch'd, and Cynthia's Battle Gimmick trump card had already been expended on Togekiss, Ash's Lucario had also soaked up some big hits, and the Queen's Garchomp is never to be underestimated underestimated, so we knew we were in for a show. Before the finale kicks off, we are treated to a string of flashbacks zeroing in on Cynthia and Garchomp growing up together, and it was a truly touching sequence. But the sentimentality is short-lived, as, before long, Garchomp lets it rip with Scale Shot. Lucario battles back with Bullet Punch and Aura Sphere. The two enter a Dragon Claw on Bullet Punch melee, and as soon as she gets an opening, Garchomp moves in and begins to lay the beatdown on an arms down Mega Lucario with Dragon Claw after Dragon Claw. And it does not look pretty. But Lucario shakes off the blows and gets in some humdingers itself, with both Pokemon looking pretty tuckered out at this point. The boxing match, the all-out frenzy goes on and on and on, both Pokemon throwing everything and the kitchen sink at their opponent, and then the final move of the match is made. Out of nowhere, Ash calls reversal, seemingly in a throwback to his big win in Alola. It connects, and both Pokemon are dropped to the ground. It looks like they are both out cold. Could it seriously be a tie? The stadium falls silent, the clock ticks, the clock talks, it tick-tocks some more, and then Ash's Lucario gets up. And just like that, it is finally over. The crowd goes wild, and Ash cuts another notch in history. Cynthia takes the loss with grace, and the man from Pallet Town is going through to the finals. What a battle, but this is not the end. Well, not for Ash anyways. Prior to her match with Ash, Cynthia told Diantha that she would be retiring from battling following the conclusion of her Masters 8 run, and this statement shocked fans. Naturally, it was only appropriate for Ash to be the one to usher her out, but even though Ash's victory was a big moment for the anime, it was also laced with a hint of sadness. After all, Cynthia had been the invincible golden girl of the Pokemon anime since way back when she made her anime debut on July 17th, 2007, and until, well, just a moment before right now, she had always looked so far out of Ash's reach. And since that very first episode wherein she broke Paul, like mommy giving her little cookie jar thief a spanking over the knee, Ash had dreamt of beating her. But from the ease with which she defended her champion title from challengers, to how she had to step in to mentor Ash and friends and bail them out of tough situations, as recently as Pokemon Journeys, wherein she saved everyone's buns not once, but thrice, well, it had always looked like there was so much distance between them that Ash would never catch up. But here we are at the conclusion of a proper banger of a battle. Ash has finally done what seemed impossible for so long, and speaking as a longtime viewer, it was really something to see. That said, Ash has one remaining challenge just around the bend, and that battle is going to push his limits even further. Just barely getting through his first two Masters 8 battles by the seat of his pants, Ash must now head into battle against the tournament's unchallenged favorite, Leon. The undisputed #1 trainer in the entire world, the reigning monarch, and a man whose commanding Masters 8 run has left a trail of embarrassment, controversy, and salt in its wake. In his battles leading up to his date with Ash, we have seen the Purple Panther decimate both Alan and Diantha with ease, and this is not the first time we have seen Ash gearing up to take on an opponent built up as a near-invincible nightmare adversary in the preceding rounds. And in the past, this scenario has not ended well for Ashy Boy, with Ash pushing these opponents further than anyone before him had, but ultimately failing to snag the W. And setting the Game Shark incident aside, the parallels to 2016's Kalos League final of Ash versus Alan are difficult to ignore. Much like Alan, Leon soundly defeated Ash in exhibition play long before the series-ending tournament. Much like Alan, Leon made a monkey out of every opponent on the way to the final, including Alan. And much like Kalos League era Alan, Leon has a stable of secret stallions we will not even see in action until he faces Ash. Or will we? Back in 2016, Ash could not get the job done against an opponent portrayed as his absolute superior, and as we know, the patterns of the Pokemon anime tend to repeat themselves. Of course, Sun and Moon and Journeys have bucked the trend in more ways than one, but in combination of a couple pieces of out-of-universe information, one has to wonder if we have been watching the show's creators foreshadow Ash sucking down a fat L to Leon over the past few months. Only time will tell. But at the end of the day, whether or not Ash comes out on top in the confrontation with Leon, today he shook the viewership, the internet, and the unwritten rules of the anime once again by taking down the Queen of Pokemon at long last, and that is something very special in itself. So, how do you feel about the outcome of Ash versus Cynthia? How will the final battle against Leon unfold? And are you a coffee drinker or more of an Uncle Iroh? As you may know, I have been in Taiwan for a while now, and while the summer is hotter and more humid than Japan's summer, which is saying something, it's not as unbearable as I thought it might be. That said, I'm happy that the temperatures are cooling off as it's becoming more enjoyable to spend time outside. And speaking of spending time outside, we just recently enjoyed the Mid-Autumn Festival, during which families get together to barbecue under the moonlight, to admire the moon, and of course, to eat mooncakes. Are you a fan of mooncake? And what is your favorite festival? We had a great time with Weiwei's family, and it just reminded me how important little festivities like this are to bring people together for a break from the daily grind. Also, the next day, Weiwei and I went out to see the new One Piece movie, One Piece Film Red, and the last movie we had gone out to see was Secrets of Dumbledore back in Japan, so it has been a hot minute. Anyways, the format of Film Red was pretty unique, as aside from, of course, the Straw Hats, the movie was centered on Uta, a Hatsune Miku-like diva with strange powers and a special connection to Shanks, and much of the story unfolded like a pseudo-musical of sorts, and while it took a little while to adjust to the pacing, every song was an absolute banger, and it kind of felt like I was watching a series of awesome AMVs strung together by a fairly interesting plotline, which caused Weiwei to cry. I think they did a great job with a somewhat unusual concept. Of course, like most anime movies, it was made for existing fans who are familiar with the series' characters and lore, and just looking for a fun night out with their favorite characters and perhaps their real-life friends. But if you enjoy the Pokémon anime and have never watched or read One Piece, then what are you waiting for? Now is the time to pick up the manga from chapter 1 or the anime from episode 1 and enjoy a story packed with fantasy, fun, and adventure. Well, have a good one, and we will talk again soon.